welcome to Volume 15 of the Woods Master series, where we teach you to be the Woods Master. In this volume of the Woods Master, we're going to be doing another in the Close-Up series. Now, the Close-Up series is a set of videos, 2 so far, where we get into in-depth instruction in certain skills and certain areas related to the wilderness. In the last one, we talked about, all kinds of interesting things like, this is Jesse, like holsters and leather sheaths and stuff like that. And this one we're going to be talking about how to make some moccasins and how to make an alcohol stove, and of course how to start a fire with a stick. And in the next one we're going to be talking about more wilderness stuff. But every once in a while you're going to see one of these close-up series. So let's get started on this one. First, a word of warning. This is not a skill for children to play with. You're working with flammable chemicals, so be careful and don't do this indoors.
All right, guys, what we are going to build today is an alcohol stove. Now, the reason I came up with this stove was through some of my backpacking experience. I just wanted to find an easier way to lighten the load. And using an alcohol stove made out of a soda can was just the obvious answer. It was inexpensive, they're easy to find, and you can make it with a pocket knife, at least my version. Now, there are other versions out there that you can make. Some of them require 2 cans, some of them require epoxy, glue, whatever. Everybody just has their own way, but mine I find is one of the easiest. What we do to begin with, we have an empty soda can. So what we do is everybody pull out their knife. All right, and you take your knife, and we're going to scribe 3 lines on the can. Now, usually the way I work this, we're going to scribe a line right around here on the bottom. It's probably going to be about an inch up from the bottom. Another one about an inch down from the top, and another one right around here. The easiest way to get your line going is to just kind of hold it and just kind of eyeball where it's going to be. About an inch up. And what you do is you take that point and you start at the can. You just start spinning the can, scribing a line. Now, the reason we're scribing a line is it's going to make it easy for the can to tear, okay, along that line. Try to make it as straight as possible. Hold the knife as steady as possible. If for any reason you don't feel like you can get an inch up, there is a little trick that you can do. For those of you that can't get an inch, you get a piece of wood, a rock. In this case, I have a lighter. I could stick the blade underneath it, and I can adjust the height simply by sliding the blade back across the item or moving it forward. That'll adjust the height. In this case, I'm doing okay here. So you guys just keep scribing all the way around. You want to keep scribing across that line, that exact same line, because that's going to be our tear mark. If you want,
so you go around again.
Yeah, just keep going, because you want to. That's where we're gonna tear the can up. The reason you do it this way, it makes a nice clean cut after you scribed it. If you try to cut it first, you're just gonna get a bunch of jags. This way you're pretty much gonna be able to just press it along the scribe. So once everyone has that done, we'll continue. So just keep going. And don't tear the can, just a nice clean mark, okay? Once you've done with that, flip the can over and do another one about an inch from the, in this case, I think I got 1.5 inches. You have a curve here where the can starts to roll. If you go about another 1/2 inch up, that'll be a good height. And again, all you have to do is just eyeball it. This isn't rocket science. And just keep scribing. You don't want to cut all the way through the canyon, because there is one more step that you want to do. The next step, which in all actuality we could have done first, is to cut out this top portion of the can. Okay, the easiest way to do that is take the tip of your knife, stick it in that groove, and just start spinning the can. And you're just going to keep going until the lid collapses, or you can hammer it down. But you'll notice that once you got a nice clean mark, that lid will pop out pretty easy. Just watch out with the knives, you don't want to cut yourself. You won the
you
rubber
did?
knife award. Yes, exactly like me. I got the stitches to prove it. And the reason I said I did this backwards by scribing the lines, if we were to cut off the bottom first, then you would have no support for the can when you're turning to cut out the lid, and the can would collapse on you. So that's why you want to do this first. There it goes. It looks like Alan got it. See how easy that broke through? Just right across where you scribed. And you can pull out that center. Might you break right around here. What we're going to do next is we're going to make our jets. Before we cut this out, again, we want the reinforcement of this. Again, these lines right here were just to mark where we're going to cut later on. So we take the tip of the knife and just choke up really tight up on the knife, and just pick a perimeter around where the curvature is. Pick a perimeter, and then just start poking holes in it, about 1/8 of an inch apart. And mine are coming out about 1/8 of an inch apart, or 3/16 at the most. And we're going to go around the whole can. And these are our actual jets. Cool. Once you guys are done, you should have a bunch of holes running around the perimeter of the can. These holes are the actual jets where the fuel is going to shoot out. And if we wanted to pour alcohol in here, we can. However, without that inner wall, you would not get fire coming out of the jets. So we have to build an inner wall. Guys, when you're making these jets, if one of them gets bigger than the other ones, if you tear one, don't worry about it. This is a field expedient stove. It's not rocket science. All right, guys. Once we've done our jets, we've cut out our top. Now it's time to start actually cutting the can so we can get our 2 portions. So across that one line that we scribed on earlier, let's continue scribing there. And we're going to do the same thing that we did with the lid. We're just going to keep scribing until our point just comes in here. Or another way of doing this, just keep scribing. Once you feel like it might be sufficient, look inside the can. If you see a well-marked line on the inside where that line should be scribed, you can probably start punching it out pretty easily. So just keep going across. You might have enough to where you can just start pressing it. Just all you have to do is just poke a hole in here, and then you just start pressing with your finger. And if you scribe deep, there it goes. Now you can just cut it right across the can. See how that works now?
Okay.
Now it's tearing. Now you see you got a cleaner edge than everyone else. So just keep going. If you get off track, if it starts to cut in here, get back online with your knife. Once you guys have cut out the bottom, flip the can over and do the same thing to that other line. Try to keep this edge as clean as possible, because this is going to be the visible edge. This is the edge we're going to see on the outside of the stove. So the cleaner the cut, the nicer it's going to look. Now that we're done cutting, we should have 3 pieces. This part right here with the jets is going to be the top piece. This bottom part of the can is obviously the bottom piece. And this piece right here is what we're going to make our inner wall. But in order to make that inner wall, we have to determine how big to cut this. The only way we can do that out in the field is to actually assemble the stove the way it's going to go. And before we do that, don't jump ahead. Before we do that, we have to do one thing. We have to take the bottom piece and we have to crinkle the edges. Because if you try to do it like this, it's not going to fit over. We are trying to fit this top piece over the bottom piece. In order for that to fit, we have to crinkle these edges and kind of bend them inward. And all you do is you take your thumb and index finger and kind of just do a pinching motion. And you'll see that the edge starts to crinkle. You could take the top piece and then slide it over very gently the bottom piece. If it doesn't fit easy, you may have to crinkle a little more. Again, using a pinching motion, you're kind of rolling the edges in a little bit. And just continue trying. Here's, I got a spot right here.
How far down should you push it over?
As far down, once you get it in a position, you want to push it down so this edge does not exceed this edge right here, because if you do that, it's going to be very sharp. So get it down to a position where, you know, you hide the crinkles because obviously they're there. Just stick it in there and you can kind of squeeze them together with the palm of your hands. This is what it should look like. This is the stove without the inner wall. Again, we do need the inner wall to build the pressure to force the jets to work. Without that inner wall, this stove will not work the way it's supposed to. Now that we have our piece assembled, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to cut our inner wall. This piece right here, which is the center portion of the can, what you want to do is take your knife, lay this on its side, and just cut. You're just going to open this. You're just going to open this piece up. You scribe the line, then you can just fold across that line, and it should break fairly easily. There it is. Okay. Once you're done with that, in order to determine the height of the wall, you wrap it around the stove. Take your knife. Lay it across. I'm taking this off right here so everyone can see. You take your knife and lay it across the whole top portion of the stove. Wrap this around, and now you just kind of maintaining downward pressure on this aluminum strip that you cut. You just kind of start sliding it from one end to the other, and what that's doing is just marking the wall. Once you have your rough mark, obviously the bigger part is going to be the inner wall. I want you guys to cut into the wall, drop down below that line, maybe about a 1/16 of an inch. So if your line is here, cut into it about a 1/16 of an inch and draw another one. This is going to be the actual line that you cut. And you just take it and just going straight across. And the nice thing about this aluminum, it kind of allows you to maintain a pretty straight line as you're doing this. You don't really need a ruler. You should just be able to bend this back and forth and just tear along that line. You can discard the smaller piece. We don't need that anymore. Next, we take our stove and we break it open, separate the two portions. If you take your top part, the top part of the stove, and you flip it upside down, you will notice that there's a groove where the lip folds into the top, where there's a groove. You take that inner wall and you stick it inside that groove, all the way around the can. It's probably easier if you do the clean side. The jagged side may not fit in there too well. Once that center wall is inserted, this is what it should look like from an inverted view. It should be sticking out. Now what I like to do is I like to create a little passageway for the fuel to go in. So what I do is I'll take, and what I'm going to do right now is serves a twofold purpose. What I'm going to do is I take this and I cut a slot here and a slot here, and I just fold that tab back. That will keep this portion together, and that will allow the fuel to shoot in. So I just take a knife and I'll just, through both walls, I'll cut a tab there, a slice there. Now you'll see you have a tab in here. I just fold that tab back. So that little dog ear will just keep the two pieces together. If you look at the bottom piece, you'll notice there's a groove on the inside of the can. Now, the trick here is to try to get this bottom portion of the inner wall to sit inside the bottom. Now, Here's a little trick I learned from Lou Magnabosco. You kind of just roll this just very little. That'll help the seating. The inner wall, you take your inner wall and you just kind of just roll the edges towards the inside. That'll help the seating, because what happens is this groove inside the bottom portion of the can is actually narrower. The diameter is smaller than the diameter of the inner wall. So you got to just very little. Just you don't want to make it too big, because then it looks messy. Once you're done with that, now you can stick these two pieces together. I actually have to open this up a little bit so I can line up the groove. These cans will hold together by their own pressure once you get the edges going. If for whatever reason it's really loose and it just pops, the two pieces separate really easily, what that means is that the inner wall is too high. So you're going to want to open it back up, take out that inner wall, and we'll just shave back. In my case, I'm going to shave back about another 1/16 of an inch. So I'm going to open that up, and I'm going to take about another 1/16 of an inch off. And just once you have that piece, you just try to put it back together and see if it fits any better than what you had. Also, a twisting motion when you're putting the cans together will help seat it. Give this a roll just a little bit here. Mine's all done. I have to do, squeeze it a little more. There we go. Once the can is assembled, if you look inside, you'll see the inner wall. In between this inner wall and the outside of the can is the chamber that's going to build, where the pressure is going to be built up. Once that pressure builds up, we're going to have our jets fired up and working. And we'll demonstrate that next. We finally come to the final phase, completion of the stove. You guys should all congratulate yourself. You all look like you have a fully operational stove. We will try it. Now is the fun part. We're going to test it, but before we do that, I want to talk about a few key points here. We are going to be dealing with alcohol and fire, and obviously, if you notice, we're on a wood table, so we got to prepare for that. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take a pan and lay it here and put my stove on top. And we might want to do that for all the stoves just in case. And we will be using denatured alcohol. There is one thing you guys really need to know about denatured alcohol, and that is that it is highly toxic. The reason I use denatured is because it burns very cleanly. You can use isopropyl rubbing alcohol in these stoves. However, it burns dirty. Everything will get sooty on, on the bottom of your cups or bowls or whatever it is that you're going to cook on. So we use denatured alcohol. Again, I got to reiterate that it is toxic. The good thing about denatured alcohol, you can find it hardware stores, marine stores, wherever. You can find it in many places, but just be cautious. Read the instruction on denatured alcohol. It is very toxic. So just want to be cautious. When you pour it in there, don't be afraid, because if you do it slow, it's going to drip down the bottom. And that's why we have this pan here to collect any denatured alcohol so it doesn't get absorbed by the wood and we catch the table on fire. That wouldn't be good. Pour some in the middle. Very little. You don't need about a capful. I poured a little bit more, and I have some right here. Cover it back up. Set this off. Get our lighter. And before we light this, I am going to take one more precaution, and that is I have a fire extinguisher sitting by, just in case. So what I'm going to do now is we just light the center. Be careful, it really gets hot. Yeah, there's a flame. We can't see it, but it's there. And it's going to take a while to heat up, but in about 10 or 15 seconds, you can hear it cooking now. We're going to have flame shooting out of the sides. Now it is daylight now, so you may have a little bit of a hard time seeing the jets working. You'll notice on my can right here, I have some flame shooting out of the bottom, and the reason that happened is because when I built the bottom chamber, the fuel reservoir as I call it, I didn't make the wall high enough. When I poured the alcohol inside, I exceeded the height of this, so it's obviously dripping over the side, and the pressure buildup is forcing some of the gas to come out of the bottom, and that's why the bottom is lit. But if I was to take a little more time and do it right, or pour less alcohol in there, this wouldn't be happening. We'd only have flames coming out of the jets. So that's why that's happening. But if you can see, if you look really closely, you'll see the jets are all working. The great thing about this stove is that this will work under high wind conditions. It's not ideal, but it will stay lit. I just blew on it, it won't extinguish, which is really cool. You wouldn't cook like this. You would obviously have a windscreen that comes around here, and you would have a pot stand. You can't put a pot on top of it. However, it's not going to burn it as efficient. And the problem with that is this is such a narrow diameter that the tip over probability is really high. So you want to have a pot stand, you want to have your windscreen, and there you go. You can have boiling water in about anywhere between 4 to 7 minutes, depending on how you built your can, and there you go. Let's pour some fuel in your guys's and see how well you made them. Pour a little bit in this one, a little bit in this one. Of course, I got alcohol going all over the place.
A dangerous combination.
Yes. We're gonna set this whole pan on fire. You mind if I borrow yours? Because then I could just.
It's more fun.
This one is more.
Not going.
I see this one's starting to burn through the jets.
The green one?
Yeah.
So is the white one.
The green one and white one are going to run real well.
This one is gone. This one is shooting out from all over the place, primarily the bottom. So you make a bunch of these and you can have a big pan sitting right above them and you just heat the whole thing. These all work to some degree or another. Obviously, the ones that are shooting out of the bottom is we don't have an airtight seal, and that comes because we didn't make a nice clean cut around the can in order to get a nice airtight seal. So that's one of the things to take into consideration for next time. Other ones we pressed together too tightly and we created a split up the middle, as in this one right here. We caused this one to split. This one right here seems to be working pretty well, so is this one. Yes, we got flames going all over the place, but that's because we don't have our windbreak around them. It's a good place for you, by the way.
You want to put them out?
Yeah, we can put them out.
In this next piece, we're going to watch George, the moccasin man, as he makes a pair of moccasins out of a piece of rawhide buffalo skin and some brain tanned leather for the uppers. Watch this one.
A little bit of room to play with, and we need a pencil. We're going to trace around your foot. The whole idea when you trace around the foot is to keep the pencil perpendicular to it. Don't lean in. If anything, lean out. Try to keep it as straight as possible, and you just run it right around the edge of the foot. Okay, take your foot off the paper. Now then, what I want you to do, since this is, I already know how to do it, you need to learn. Okay, take a pencil. What I want you to do is I want you to smooth out all of this. Just kind of round that out right there like that.
From here?
Yeah, just
Yeah.
and right here on this point on your foot, just round your toes. Just make it no indents. That's good.
See here?
Mm-hmm. Okay, then cut your big toe in half. Just cut up about that much of it.
Right there.
And
You know, like a straight line on that.
just kind of round it. And then take it down. See that?
Okay.
There now then. Cut yourself.
Finger, right?
Yeah, just halfway marked.
Now, look between these lines.
Yeah, just right here on your
Or
heel. Just
on the
just
heel.
center your heel.
Oh, okay.
And then center your toes. Yeah, like a good spot. Okay. Here we're going to cut a strip of paper 1/4 of an inch wide and somewhere close to 12 inches long. It doesn't have to be 12 inches. It can be, 10, but 12 works fairly decently. Okay. Now then, we'll take our wonderful scissors and cut that free. You have to put your foot back up on the pattern. And wipe the dirt off your socks.
Oops.
Okay. Back. Back. Let's do this thing. Just use up a little bit. I'll just move you where I want. Okay. Now we're back on the pattern. What we're going to do is we're going to take this. I'm going to put one end flush on the paper and hold it there. And we're going to go stand up straight on that foot. There. I have to stand up straight so I can get a measurement here. If my fingers would work, it'd be better. Then you take it down to this side of the paper and you crease it where it touches the paper again. And then you take a pencil, like this one. Can you reach down here and hold this piece of paper down now? Okay, remove your foot. So then what you do is you lay your ruler across here and you figure out which one's the longest one and kind of guesstimate what's going to be parallel with the bottom of your page, your poster board. You always go off your longest mark.
Longest from where?
We'll just measure just the longest one on your foot.
Oh, okay.
1/4, 1/2. Now this will be our, we're going to wind up with a center line like this on our next pattern. This is for just the sole. Okay, the fold that we did with this paper, we're going to mark that fold. And then we're going to add another mark 1/2 inch away from. And we're going to use this on the top pattern. Now we're going to make the top pattern for the moccasin, and it's going to be laid out using your sole pattern. Mark off a line 1 inch from the bottom of the paper. Make about 2 or 3 marks and then draw a straight line through it. Let me get this out of your way. Lay the sole pattern on this line we just drew. And we want the foot sort of parallel to the edge of your paper. And while I hold it down, I want you to draw around your foot pad. center line. Okay, mark this one right here. Go down there. Okay, fold the piece of paper that we measured the instep with, the arch, and then fold it to that first line to center. And when this fold comes in, I'm going to mark also, because it lays right on your foot pattern in your crosshairs and goes across like so. And I'm going to mark it out here. I'm going to mark it here. Then, on the second one, we make another fold, except we go to the farthest line. Fold it, mark it, lay it at the bottom of the paper, mark this end, mark the second line. We're going to set the compass at 3/16 of an inch. Then we're going to outline the moccasin. This is for the toe room for your toes and the end of your upper on the moccasin, on the leather for your moccasin. Okay, you want to do this on yours? Just right around the toe of your moccasin.
Do it on the toe?
Yeah, just like I did around this one.
How do you know where to start? Or does it make any
It does. It's right here. It's because we're just.
What is that mark used for, George?
That will give you the room you need on your upper, on the brain tan buckskin on the upper for your toes.
Tangent to it.
It goes tangent. Do you want to make yours or do you want me to make it?
Where's it start?
Go ahead.
Okay. And we'll do the same on the other side. It goes to that first mark. And if you don't look at your line, you look at where you're going, you wind up with a better line. Like that.
Where would you take off at? Take off at?
I'd take off right here and just bring it, because it's tangent to it.
Where is that line supposed to terminate? Oh, at that midline right there?
Yeah, at the midline. This midline is right here, the one that we laid out with our arch measuring piece of paper. Okay, then you continue it on down clear to the end of the paper to your next line where you had your. Okay, now we're going to cut this pattern out. This is for your upper on your moccasin.
Okay, do you cut all the way to the end of the paper here?
Yeah, all the way to the end of the paper.
Three.
Okay, this last inch that we marked off here, this is going to be the piece that's going to wrap around the heel of your moccasin. So you'll have enough material to do that. This are the two pieces of our pattern. This is the sole piece, and this is your upper piece. The upper piece has this 3/16 of an inch line around the toe. This will give you room for your toes when the moccasin's sewn together. It goes down to your first mark on the 1/4 inch measuring piece that we used, and then this line drops down to the 1/2 inch that we added to that piece. This line here is also for the slack that you're going to need in your upper to go around the heel of your sole pattern. This is buffalo hide. It's the back half of a 7-year-old bull. I found that buffalo hide, rawhide, wears better for moccasin soles than any rawhide or leather I've tried. It's rather hard to work with due to the fact that it's very thick and stiff. We're going to lay the patterns out on it dry and cut them, and then we're going to soak the buffalo hide overnight so that we'll be able to sew it in the morning. The other thing about this buffalo hide is that it was stretched flat and fleshed, but in order to make your sole, it has to be pre-shrunk. So after it's all stretched and fleshed, I get it wet again and just let it turn into this curled up piece of buffalo hide. This way, when you lay out your pattern and sew it, when it returns to its original shape like this, you won't be walking the stitches off of your moccasins. The other thing we do when we're laying out our pattern is the buffalo hide shrinks side to side. It does not shrink front to back. So we're going to lay it out so that the shrinkage will come from the heel and the toe, not from side to side. Yeah.
How do you know from the way that's laying which is side to side and which is lengthwise?
This is a hind leg, and the other hind leg is gone. Okay. Buffalo cowhide doesn't work as well. Now I'm going to need some assistance here because I have to hold the pattern to conform to all the lumps and bumps in this hide. Try to get you right on the very edge so you don't have too much to cut. While I hold this pattern in position, I want you to draw around it.
With pencil?
Yes. Okay, now then flip your pattern over and we'll do the other foot. These we're going to use aircraft tin snips to cut this. You can use a jigsaw. But we don't have electricity here, so we're going to use the tin snips. Aircraft tin snips works best. The other ones are really hard to cut it with.
Swimmingly.
If it gets too easy, then we know we have too thin of a rawhide.
Well, it's nice to know that we don't.
That's some good rawhide. Don't look at me like that. That look could kill.
That way.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, you see where it's real thick and then it starts getting thin right here. It's right on
The Indians used stone points, and obsidian was the main one because it's sharper than steel. Another interesting thing about what I've studied in the museums is the moccasin soles were thin, and so was the leather. The leather was very thin on the uppers. I leave the hair on the bottom of the moccasin because I don't want to take off I want to have the epidermis layer, which wears longer and tougher. And also the first 2 to 4 days that the hair is on the moccasin sole, you're absolutely quiet for stalking. And the other nice part about it is it doesn't leave tracks. We've got all the pieces cut out for the soles. It's really stiff. It's like cast iron. We're now going to soak them overnight so that they'll be pliable and we'll be able to sew them in the morning.
Is there anything in that water?
No, it's just pure, just water. All it is. There's no additives or anything. We're going to make the uppers this morning out of ring tan buckskin. And when we lay out our pattern, we want our stretch to go side to side on the upper. So it'll give you some give over the top of your foot. And we lay the pattern down. Try to keep it away from this hole. And then you hold it down and draw around your pattern. And you flip your pattern over for left or right. So you only have to make one pattern to do both feet.
Which side of the leather is up?
This is the hair side, but the epidermis when you brain tan is taken off. The other nice thing about brain tanned leather is it can be washed with ivory soap by hand, and your moccasins will come out soft and clean. Okay, now that I've drawn around the pattern, you can see that we have a pattern. I'm going to cut that out. Now that we've cut out the top pattern for the top of the moccasin, we're going to remove the moccasin soles that we've had soaking in water overnight so that they're pliable and we can be able to sew through them. I'm getting most of the water off of it. You lay your pattern, your sole out, and you lay your top onto the sole, so it'll be this will be the way the finished moccasin will come out. Then you cut a piece of artificial sinew and separate it. Each of these strands will make 4 threads. And I'm using a number 3 Glover's needle. It's a triangular needle and it has sharp edges. It cuts the leather and makes sewing easy. Now to start your sewing, flip your moccasin over, line up your toe points. Now you're only going to go through half of the thickness of this rawhide, but all the way through the buckskin. Then I tie a knot tying the top to the bottom and give me a start on it. You want to keep the leather firm, but you don't want to pull it tight. If you overstretch it, it won't fit. And I'm sewing this tail down into it so I don't trim it off that much. That way I don't have loose threads running around. And if you use real sinew, this is absolutely important, because if you leave it loose, it'll become hard and like a little needle poking you in the toe. You can see the stitches the way I'm making them. I'm just catching the edge of the moccasin. I'm not going real deep into it. And we will continue sewing until we get to this point on the sole, where we'll stop so that we'll be able to turn the moccasin. We're going to do the tie off right now because we only sewed to this point so that we can turn the moccasin right side out. So you go back through your loop, go back through that loop again, doing a half hitch. Then you take your thread and run it back through your stitches. And this is especially important if you're going to do this with real sinew. The other nice thing is it doesn't leave any loose ends of thread. Okay, now that we've sewed to this point on our sole, we're going to turn the moccasin skin inside, right side out, and then we're going to finish stitching all the way to the heel. And if you don't leave enough room to turn the moccasin, it means you got to take out stitches until you get to the point where you can turn it. And some days it's easier than others. Turn all our seams so we can see how well we sewed it, and making sure that we didn't go clear through the sole, because if you go clear through the sole, you'll walk your stitches off and your moccasins will fall apart. Now we're going to sew from this point to the center of the heel, and from here to the center of the heel. And we're going to sew it like this, continuing to sew from the inside and around. Now that we've sewed it all the way to the back and these two tails are left over, this doesn't make any difference if they're not even, but it's important to have the two tails left. We're going to fold it in the middle, and then we are going to cut the opening for the foot. That's the opening. We lay out the leather so that we can put the fold and make it down the center of the moccasin. How are we going? I want you to cut this, Bill. Yep. I want you to cut it to right there where my thumb is.
We use the scissors.
And here's the scissors we do it with. Inside here. Go a little further. Go right about there. Okay, take your shoe off. And put your foot in the moccasin. Toes all the way forward, all the way forward. Okay, it's not going to go. We got to take your moccasin off. We're going to make the cut a little longer. We're going to go to there. Okay, now try it. You got a real high arch. Get your toe all the way down there to the end. Okay.
It's not around the back.
Well, that's okay. That don't make no never mind whatsoever. Okay. We cut that one just right. Okay, take your foot out. And now we're going to make a perpendicular cut to this line. Okay, is that right? I'm going to make a perpendicular cut right here. And I want it, mark it out 1 inch on each side. Okay. 1 and draw your line to it. We've got a line we can almost see.
Yeah, that's it. On that side's a little.
And cut it to that point. Okay, now I want you to put the moccasin on.
Let's see. Go back a little bit short on that one.
We're going to mark this flap and cut it for the heel to sew it shut. Put your foot in. I hope I did this right. Okay, now then instead of putting your foot all the way forward, I want you to keep your foot to the rear. Back, 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 right there. I want you to reach down here and hold those two pieces here together. Right there. Okay, take off the moccasin. Don't cut your stitches. Cut right along that line. This outside line here. Down. And this line here. Cut it just like that. Watch out when you come down to your stitches here. Go over here. Cut right over to this first. So you don't cut that stitch.
Let's see what I have underneath.
Just like that. Other side. Fold it like this, using this thread here somehow. So this seam all the way to the top here. And don't worry that they don't come out even. We'll trim that up later. Okay, we're going to cut out the finishing parts for the moccasin. The first thing we're going to cut is two 4-inch squares for the tongue. Millimeters. This is the square we're going to use for the tongue. Mark the tongue, you fold it in the middle, and mark center. Now that we've marked center, we're going to slide it inside the moccasin like this, wrong side in. So it'll be sewn like this, but when the tongue's done, it will flip over and be like that. The tongue is actually 2 inches too wide for the moccasin, but this will keep rocks out of the inside, falling in the side of the moccasin. Now that we finished the tongue, we're going to attach the cuff. Notice that the tongue folds over the top of the moccasin like this. We're going to attach a 2-inch cuff around the edge. And you measure the moccasin from the seam to this point on your moccasin, and it comes out to 6 inches. So for the cuff, there's going to be the 6 inches plus the other side 6 inches, which is 12 inches, plus 2 inches for the overhang. So we're going to make a cuff that is 14 inches long. When this moccasin was finished sewing, it came out with this tab that's a little longer than the rest, which is no big deal. We're just going to cut it off and trim it to fit. Now that we've cut the cuff off, we're going to attach it to the moccasin. And again, you fold it in the middle, mark your center, and set the center mark on the seam of your moccasin. This is also going to add strength to the top of your moccasin. You're going to sew from center to side, center to side. Now that the cuff is on, we're going to trim off this corner of the cuff to make it look a little nicer. You just cut from the edge of the moccasin to the corner of the cuff. And next, we're almost done with this one. We're going to lay it out for the lacing. You come back an eyeball's worth a ½ inch, and you come down a ½ inch from the seam, and make a 1/4 inch mark. You come over the waist, make another 1/4 inch mark. And you come halfway on the moccasin between the here and the seam. You come down a ½ inch and make another mark. And you do that again. And you go back here to the seam. You come down a ½ inch and make another 1/4 inch mark, and down again and make another 1/4 inch mark. Then you take your scissors and you cut these free. This is going to be for your lacings.
I'll try these. Oh, those work great.
Now you do this again on the other side of the moccasin, making 3 more. I've cut a circle of leather, and I'm going to make the lacings now out of this leather. And I hold it at about a 1/4 inch. It's just an eyeball measurement, and you just go around in a circle, cutting it out. This will make enough lacing for both moccasins.
You built this all by yourself?
Oh, I had some help.
Really? You had some help? That's good. Thank you. Can you show us the sole? Bigfoot. Got it. My back looks like that. Nice. Nice work. Thank you. Cool. How's it feel?
Very comfortable. Very comfortable. A little slick with the hair still on it, but that'll wear off.
So those hairs go in one direction. It's like you walk up a mountain but not down.
Yeah.
Sometimes when you're filming in the wilderness, you don't exactly get what you want because the lighting's off or this or that. You know, it's just the way things happen. So I want to explain a couple of things you just saw. One of those things is we want to talk about the needle that George was using in the video, and we need to talk about something else related to the needle, and that is something called a needle threader. If you've got eyes like I do, a needle threader is going to be an important thing, and they're only about 50 cents. The needles themselves, you could purchase at just about any kind of a sewing shop. These are your Glover's needles. There's only 3 here, and George showed a package of professional size needles, and they're just fine, but they're a little harder to find. You can find all this stuff at a sewing supply place. And the last thing that I want to talk about here in just a minute is a thimble. This will help keep that needle from going into your finger because it can go in backwards right through the meat of your thumb or whatever it is you're pushing the needle with. So we got a little field expedient trick that'll help you with the thimble. So let's get started with this stuff. I don't like that process, so I use one of these, the needle threader. It's just a little wire that goes right through the top of the needle, and then if you're not a spaz, you can shove the thread right through the wire and pull it right into your needle. Cool. Thimbles have been around for a long time, and there's a good reason for it. When you're pushing on a needle, there's a sharp end on both ends. Of course, one end is sharper, but the other end is plenty sharp enough to go through your thin finger. So they use thimbles to protect the fingers, the thumbs, or whatever you're using. Now, you may not have one of these things out there when you decide to make a pair of sandals, so you might need to make something like a field expedient thumb or finger protector. And let me show you how to make a good one. It starts with a piece of full grain leather. This is heavy duty leather, cowhide here, and not with something like this, a thin piece of floppy leather. You want something substantial to stop that needle from going into your finger. To make one of these, you just start with that piece of full grain leather, and right on one of the corners, you see I've got a 90-degree here, grip it in about 1/4 of an inch from the edge, like so. Now you can see your thumb is in here and there's a little bit of extra material. Next step is to outline your thumb. I'll just do that like this. It's okay to come in a little bit on your thumb. It doesn't have to be precise. Now once you've got your thumb outlined like so, at that 1/4 of an inch, draw another line that's 1/4 of an inch or so outside of your thumb line. So now we've got a big semicircle here. One part is your thumb here, and the other part is 1/4 of an inch out from your thumb. Now I'll put my thumb back in place. You see where my thumbnail is here at the beginning. Make a mark there and a mark on the other side and draw a line across like so. Your next step is to cut this out. If you hear a noise in the background, a little grunting, that's my son Jesse. He's learning to make baby talk. So he's got a little comment about everything right about now. There we go. Now I've got that thing cut out. Next step is to where I drew that line where my thumb goes right here. We're just going to cut out a flap right there. So using a nice sharp knife, I'll just kind of peel that out. Be real careful. I'm using a little knife by Trace Rinaldi here. It's good and sharp for this kind of stuff. There we go. Now you can see from the user's side, there's a little half moon here. What we do is we simply slip this over the thumb like this, and that gives us a pad. There we go. A pad like so to work with. You can see now I can press right here with this little piece of leather against whatever it is that I'm trying to cut. Now it'd be really handy if I could tie this onto my thumb, and that's really easy to do. Remember that extra 1/4 inch? Well, what we do is we take our handy dandy hole cutter that you saw in the previous video, and we'll punch a couple of holes like so. go. Remember, grunting is important to this kind of work. Looks like these pieces didn't come out very well. I hate it when that happens. There we go. Sometimes this happens with this kind of leather. You gotta work it a little bit to get these plugs out. You can always bite it off. Let's see here. There we go. That's got it. Once you've made these two holes, make a couple more just a little bit in from the first ones that you cut. Nee, 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 nee. It helps to have baby talk in the background this time. Now, there we go. There's one. And two. Now we got 4 little holes there. Next up is to cut a little strap of leather, a little strip. If you happen to have some rawhide shoelaces, those are good. Anything like that. Any old shoelace, parachute cord, anything is fine. Of course, I prefer this leather since I have it. Now, that's not a thing of beauty, but remember our rule, good enough, well enough. There we go. The next step is going to be to thread these holes. You want to put your little strap in here. So I'm going to put it through the inside holes first. One there. And one here. And then level it out so that they're the same length approximately. And then go back through the outside holes. Like so. What that'll do is that'll make these things tie directly to your thumb. It'll pull this thing tighter around your thumb when you tie it on. Now you install this on your thumb, and of course the fun part is always tying it with one hand. You can always get someone else to tie it for you. Ah, there's an extra hand there. Arr, go ahead and pull it tight. I like the pain. Arr, that's it. Now, if I want to do another like little tie here, there you go. And that's it. Now you can see that thing stays right in place. Now I can sew and push and carry on with those needles all I want, and this will protect my thumb. Another thing that might confuse a few people is that little 1/4-inch strip that's used to determine the width of the upper. Now, I thought what I'd do is try to reconstruct a portion of that, and what we have here in front of me is a outline of a foot, roughly like you saw in the video. And on the side is that 1/4-inch strip. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to go ahead and cut that out, like so. Eep, bunk. Like that. Now, how do you get the measurements from the foot using this? Let me show you. Now, I've gone out and harvested a leg off a local mannequin here, and you can see it doesn't lay in there quite the way I would like it to be, but just the same, I think you'll still get the idea. This is that foot head on, and here's your 1/4-inch strip. When George measured it, he put the end of the 1/4-inch strip on the paper, like you see right here, and he held it down. Then he strapped it over the top, like so, and bent it, like that, and creased it with his finger. I'll get the leg out of here, bink, like that. The next step after that, he marked that, and that is the width of the upper, right there, or very close to it. In order to establish the location on it, from there he went to this kind of a movement here, and this is the halfway mark between the outside where this was originally bent and the tip where it touched the paper. So this is the Jesse. This is the measurement that you're looking for from outside to outside, like so. The fire drill is kind of a special skill. In one of our videos we showed you how to make a fire bow, and this is just the drill itself, wielded by that master of fire, Alan Helcon. Alan's going to show you his special technique for getting a fire with just one stick and a fireboard. Let's take a look.
A lot of you are familiar with the bow drill, most of you are familiar with the hand drill as well. I got two pieces of wood here. This is a piece of chamois ash from a scrapped bow project, and this is a piece of mule fat right here. Now, most people would consider ash a hard wood and therefore not use it. I accidentally came upon it one day after I ruined the bow project, and I just said, well, what else is this good for? And I tried it as a hearth for a hand drill, and just worked like a champ. I've never looked back. I've never, wanted any other wood other than ash. A lot of people prefer cottonwood or willow or whatever else, but what I find with those woods that allows this wood to stand out is that those other woods, they tend, when you start the drilling process, they tend to powder off. This one tends to coalesce more. The powder that comes off of here tends to coalesce and stick together a little better. So it doesn't allow as, in my theory is it doesn't allow as much air to come in, so therefore it doesn't extinguish any possible cold that's out there. What I do normally, and Brian here prepared this one for me, is I'll make an indentation. I'll do it. You know what? I'll just do a new one here. First, I'll take my knife, and based on my book here, I'll take this, and I don't do this anymore, but this is one way you can do it. I'll measure out where the back end of this is. So if I put my tip up right up against the edge, I put my finger right behind it, I take this out, and I just kind of scribe a line here. Okay? What I do now is I back up here. That's my new edge. I back up here, probably to around the middle. This is going to be the middle of my drill. So I just make an indentation with a knife. Okay, so now I have a nice little indentation with the knife. I take the tip of my hand drill, in this case again it's mule fat, and I choose mule fat. It's a little harder wood than this. You can use a lot of woods. Alder has some branches that grow really straight. I've used elderberry with great success. In fact, almost better success than this, but my only problem with it is way too soft once it dries out, and I seem to, when I apply the pressure, it just crumbles in my hands. So therefore I like using mule fat, just a little more durable than that. What I will do now is I will take this hand drill, and what I'm gonna do at this point, since I got the indentation I made with the knife, I'm just gonna create a mark in here. I'm just gonna set this in here and just go through the motions, just so I can create an outline of this perimeter. Okay, now I have a nice outline of where that's going to be. Now I just carve a notch in there. Again, a quote from my book. Dude swears I should use a rucksack because it has a saw in it. I say, screw him, I'm just going to use a regular blade. My stitches were actually doing this. So what I'm doing now is I'm just carving this notch. So it comes to a point that falls right within the indentation. Now I don't know how many of you can see, but if you notice this notch right here, it is not really wide. If I made this notch wide out to the sides here, the hand drill, once you start, has a tendency to jump into the notch. Really screw you up. You don't want to do that. You want to make the notch narrow, but not too narrow, because you need airflow to get in. You make the notch, that one's about 1/8 of an inch wide at the widest part. Some people like to flare the bottom out, which is no big deal to do. All you have to do is just kind of flip the stick over and just do one of these things. I don't normally spend the time to do that. I really don't care. It works for me fine the other way. Some people get really scientific and say, well, if you take this measurement and do this and do that, it's not rocket science. This is good enough. You know what? In a survival situation, chances are you're not going to think of math. You're just going to want to say, I need fire, and that's it. So this is good enough. So I'm probably about 3/16 of an inch wide here. I got my indentation here. The apex of the notch comes to a point just shy of the center. The center's fine if it falls into the center, even if it falls into the edge. Some people will just come up to the very edge with the drill and not even make a notch. You know what? In a survival situation, anything goes. We put the wood down, and we, of course, prior to this, we also have our tinder ready. We don't want to go searching around like a chicken with our head cut off after we got the coal. It's just not worth it. You want to have all your material assembled. I get a leaf, whatever else, a piece of leather, a piece of wood. I got a piece of, what is this? A piece of alder right here, just to catch the coal. The reason I put that there is it'll catch the coal, and it'll make it easier once I have the coal to transfer the coal into the tinder bundle. So I put this underneath my base. Now we're ready to go. Now, as I wrote in my book, there are a few basic positions that most people take. A lot of people take a seated position. Put 1 foot here and 1 foot here. This works for a lot of people. For a lot of people it doesn't. For people with weaker upper body mass, this is probably not going to work as well because most of your weight is centered over your ass where you're sitting down. Okay? Some people take a bow drill position, which is this. Again, most of your weight is centered over this rear leg right here when you start. So all you have is arm strength here. If you have weak upper body mass, it's going to be really difficult to get this coal. Okay? I like to do what I call like a modified bowl drill position, which is basically the same thing, but I shorten my stand. I kind of just make myself compact. My weight is here, but my head is centered over the top of the drill. Okay, when I just start doing, I just start following through. Now the thing I have to mention here, pressure is more important than speed. You need both, but pressure is more important than speed. The less speed you have, the more pressure you need, and vice versa. The less pressure you apply, the more speed you need. Once you get into this position, it's just a matter of going here, and I have what appears to be going to be some blisters here, but I'll go through it again. Yeah, those are going to hurt. I didn't talk, you know what, really quick, let me talk about the drill. This drill right here, the point that I use is probably on about 1/4 of an inch to 13/16 of an inch thick across. The rear end, a little more, maybe, shoot, I don't know, 5/8, whatever. A lot of people like to use the hand drill upside down with the wider tip at the bottom, this being the working tip, and the narrow tip at the top. Their theory is that because it's wider towards the bottom, it slows down the hands as it's moving down. Me, excuse my French, it works better for me this way. Think of this as a magnifying glass. Okay, when you guys were little kids or whatever, even up to now, the way you get heat, the way you create fire is you gotta focus all that energy into one point. So you try to make that beam as small as possible by turning that magnifying glass in certain angles. Well, the same thing is true with this. You gotta center all that energy into one point. However, the difference here being that if you make this tip, if you choose a stick too small in diameter, two things. First of all, you're not going to have enough friction here. You're going to end up with a bunch of blisters. And second of all, you're not going to have enough surface area to allow any contact with the wood in order to create the friction to get the dust. So there is a compromise between, too narrow and too thick. Again, I like using 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch at the outside most. And I don't even use that all the time. I try to find a wood that's about like this. So we get over here. Now we put the tip in the notch that we created, and you get in your position. So then we take the hand drill, and something's going to happen here. As you start working the hand drill, your hands are going to start slipping towards the bottom. Important thing to remember here: your hands, when you get to the bottom to a point that you can't go any further, you need to grab it with one hand and continue applying downward pressure. You need to trap all the heat that you've just created inside that hole. You press with downward pressure with one hand, you bring the other hand up, you re-grip, continue the downward pressure with this re-gripped position, bring the other hand to meet it, and continue. all the way down, and just do it over and over and over again. Okay? Again, downward pressure is more important than speed. The less downward pressure you have, though, the more speed you need. So there's a fine line. But if you can apply a lot of downward pressure, you should have no problem. If you can apply a lot of downward pressure and a lot of speed, you should have a coal like that. Okay, so let's give this a try. So what I'm going to do here, you'll also notice that my foot on this stick right here, this stick happens to be very long. You'll notice that my foot is right up against the edge here almost. If I have it right here, sometimes this stick has a tendency to swivel, this becoming the swivel point, the point where it swivels. So I bring it in close. Okay, here we go. Ooh, look at that, I almost have a coal. In this case, I don't have a coal yet, but look at how nice this little dark pile is. Willow and cottonwood would have a tendency to just spread out and be a little finer. You're going to do this, you may get to a point where you get tired. That's fine. Just go ahead and take a break. No big deal. But whatever you do not blow this away. You want that. There it is. There's the coal, folks.
1 second.
That's pretty long by my standards. Now you'll notice when you guys do this, don't be in a hurry to transfer the coal. Just take a breather. This thing will continue to burn on its own. Take a breather. Walk away. Take some breaths. And whatever you do, if you start breaking into sweat, don't lean over this pile because you can easily extinguish it with a piece of sweat, a drop of sweat. Now you grab your tinder bundle, in which case we don't. Look at that. Whoa! Good. So, there you guys. There's the coal. See, again, I didn't take away that dust pile, which helped me out with the speed here. So,
Good work.
thank you. Now, for those of you that want to try, knock yourselves out. I'll be here to give you guys instruction.
You may wonder where we filmed this video. Well, let me tell you, it took place at H2K. That stands for Hoodlums 2000, because back in the year 2000, a bunch of us hoodlums got together and, well, we decided we'd teach each other our skills and practice and carry on and have a good time. So every year since then, we've gotten together for a few days to do just those things. And during this last one, some of the folks that you saw in this video were there teaching their skills. And there were some other people who had some great things to show as well. But we didn't put them on video because, well, frankly, there just wasn't room on this tape to do it. At any rate, if you're interested in joining us H2K sometime, then just drop by the Hoodlums Forum on our website at www.survival.com, and you can learn all about the next get-together, which, as I say, happens every year. Well, we hope you enjoyed this volume of The Woods Master, and if you did, I hope you'll join us for the next one. Till then, we'll see you on the trail.